Hi, my name is Lavelle Romaine, and I'm one of the clinical recruiters here at City of Hope. And today is our second broadcast of it's a tweet chat. And we just have a few instructions for you. If you're watching us through Google Plus, then there's a question and answer application. You can always utilize that as you are watching. If you're asking questions on Twitter, just make sure you're using the hashtag that's hashtag Nurses for Hope, and that will help a lot. The upcoming events as we have for nurses that are in healthcare, if you're interested in an IT position, then there is also a brochure that you can look at our showcase, and it's going to be on May the 5th at 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. And you can utilize the flyer that's on our link to click onto that. Today we're going to be talking about how to protect yourself when utilizing social media as a nurse. And some of the topics we'll be talking about are protecting yourself as a nurse using social media, the highlights of the HIPPA for nurses, your professional brand when you're utilizing social media, the overview of some of your favorite discussion groups. We will be asking you to tweet those to us so that we know what your favorite discussion groups are, channels and pages for nurses that are helpful, and also how recruiters utilize social media to hire nurses. So we'll go ahead and we'll get started. There's also some websites that you can see on the link that are approved that you can utilize to get involved in social media as a nurse. And so first I'll introduce our panelists that we're happy to have here today. Our first panelist is Mark Saris, and he's a critical care nurse here at City of Hope. And then we have Jose, and Jose is working in our LNEC, which is End of Life group. Then we have Carson Konecki, and Carson is one of the assistant clinical nurse managers in our bone marrow transplant unit. So I'm going to have each one of them introduce themselves, tell you what they do here at City of Hope, how they came to City of Hope, and what they like about City of Hope before we get started. So Mark, we'll start with you.
So my name is Mark Saris. I am a critical care nurse on the 3rd floor at City of Hope. I've been at City of Hope for 2 years now, and I was actually introduced by Leilani and was brought into the team. And you know, one of the best things that I like about working at City of Hope is that there's always room for growth. There's always areas that you could expand on, and the institution kind of supports us in that way. So
that's great. You came in as a new grad.
Correct. Yes.
That's great. Okay, Jose.
Hi, everyone. My name's Jose. And like Lavelle mentioned, I work with LNEC. It stands for the End of Life Nursing Education Consortium, or the End of Life group. And I've been at City of Hope for a year, and I enjoy working it because I'm still a student. So it really emphasizes on the learning aspect. And since I'm a student, I just get to absorb everything that's going on around me while at the same time developing as a professional.
Great, thanks, Jose. Carson.
I'm Carson Konecki. I'm one of the assistant clinical managers on stem cell transplant. I've been at City of Hope for about 8 years. I came here during nursing school and worked as a PCA. So
great, very good. I just wanted to introduce Leilani. She's one of my coworkers. She's also one of the nurse recruiters here. And our other coworker, Teresa, she's going to be joining us through Twitter, through our Twitter account. So we'll go ahead and we'll start with our first question. We're talking about protecting yourself as a nurse when you're using social media. And each one of you could kind of share a little bit about what you personally do to protect yourself and just some of the guidelines you feel like City of Hope has really ingrained in you to protect you, as well as some of the brochures that you have, what you would recommend as far as what nurses can do to really protect themselves. So you want to start with you, Mark, about what you personally do?
So one of the biggest things that I always think about when I'm on my social feeds is that, is this appropriate of a professional nurse? And we really come back to some of the things that you learn in nursing school is that you are, this is a profession, it's a privilege, and it's not a right just because you finished nursing school. So you got to always think about how exactly are you going to impact your license if you do post something? And if you're actually getting into that conversation internally, if you're thinking about posting something that could violate, then maybe just step back and realize that it's not something that really needs to be said at that point. So one of the biggest things that I always do to protect myself is, is this something that's going to impact my work, my professional life, or is it just something that, is something to share? So
that's great. I think one of the brochures we were reading was talking about making sure your interactions in social media are very similar to how you would interact with someone one-on-one. And I think we tend to forget that because it becomes impersonal when we're doing social media. But the importance of realizing, would I do this in front of the person? Would I do this, at my work, and making sure what we're representing ourselves in social media is identical to the person that we are at work or with friends. How about you, Jose?
Right. So just doing some research and just from personal experience, I know that sites like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, they have options to put your account on private. So if you don't really want to connect your personal and professional life, there's always the option of putting everything on private. Other than that, I just want to echo what Mark said and really consider I'm working for this institution and I'm representing not only them, but nursing, and you don't really want to convey anything negative that would kind of tarnish the name of nursing or City of Hope.
All right. Thank you, Jose. How about you, Carson? How do you protect yourself?
Well, so you have to be really, I think, aware of how you want to be, like what you want to be perceived as.
Right.
So you need to be careful what you're posting online, because anything you post on there is subject to interpretation by who's ever reading it. So I think that you have to have, it's going to align with whatever your personal brand would be. I guess that's one of our
Right,
topics
and that's what we're going to
hitting
talk
on.
about too.
And I don't ever put anything on there about work, negative or positive. It really affects, the patients when you take you take that oath to legally and ethically protect what they're, I'm so sorry. We just have to, need to think about how it's going to affect them
Right.
and their family, and then also you and how you're going to be interacting with your coworkers, because you wouldn't want to ruin your relationship with them either. So
I think that was one of the concepts that they were talking in one of the brochures, was making sure about what you're talking about your coworkers, because a patient might see that and then have a bad interpretation of your unit, or am I getting good care? A family member might see that.
Yeah.
Someone may forward it, and just it has a lot of ramifications in doing that. What about with celebrities? How do you guys handle it when you're taking care of a celebrity and you're just dying to let everyone know that you've met this person and you'd like to get their autograph? How do you guys handle that?
Well, I guess I've had experience with a couple of celebrities that we care for at City of Hope, and
What are their names?
one of the biggest things, I think, it is that separation between your personal wants and what the patient really needs. And even though they are a celebrity and it's always easy to kind of separate them from other patients, at the end of the day, they're a patient. And, one of the things that we always have to protect is, their emotional state, their, where they are. And at City of Hope, we enter patients' lives in such a, unique stage in their life, and that if you kind of start to incorporate your own wants and needs into their lives, that you're not doing them the nursing care that they deserve. And I think separating that, realizing that you are their nurse and not their friend, they're not their buddies, but you're just there to really care for them and get them through this stage. I think that's the best way to kind of separate and protect yourself when caring for celebrities. So
I think we've all read news reports of nurses that posted things about celebrities, and it was the ramifications for their organization as well as for them personally losing their job and possibly their license. I think going back to that, and I know especially when celebrities have babies, it's real easy for people to want to say that, I helped deliver the baby. And even though the mom and dad might let you take pictures of it, it's still not appropriate in that situation of taking that to the social media.
yeah, I think just thinking yourself, you are the nurse. You control quite a bit of their lives when you're in your institution or wherever they are. And, it's a vulnerable state for them. So you got to come back and realize that your profession is to care for them, and that's what you need to focus on. So
That's great. How about you guys? Any experience taking care of celebrities, or having a temptation that you see a celebrity on campus and say, oh, I want to tell your tweet to your friends, I just saw so-and-so?
No personal experience, but if I did, I would just remind myself, or especially if I were a fan of that celebrity.
Yeah.
So would that be the case? I would remind myself they're not really, their job is to be a celebrity. Right now they're not at work, they're my patient. So I would treat them like my patient and fight any urge to share, oh, I'm taking care of so-and-so, and just treat them like a patient.
I think that we probably encounter that more here in Southern California because the entertainment industry is so much more viable here than in a lot of other states. And so I think that we're more likely to take care of a celebrity at some point in our career as a nurse. Any experiences on your unit or anything like that, Carson? That
Oh, yeah, a few. I mean, and it's tempting,
Oh,
like for sure, and I had a negative experience, so it was even more tempting. But yeah, it's really hard. You just have to separate yourself, and you're like, this is just like any other patient. They're going to get the same care.
Right.
They're not treated any more special, or it's hard though.
Yeah.
It is.
I really like what Mark brought, the whole fact that they're still a patient and they're a
Right.
person, and incorporating how do you want to be treated. And I think that that's key to a lot of it.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, it's just we got to catch ourselves because sometimes they visit family members and other, and we don't realize that it's, just because you didn't share their name, but the family member was there, you took pictures, then that exposes their whole entire family. And how are you impacting them? And what good would it be?
Right.
What good is it to share something like that at a state where, they're really, really down.
Mhm.
So especially with oncology, we see them years on end and we take care of them even after, they go into remission. And we see them on the, campus grounds. They're donators, there are other people too. And I think, it is always tempting, but at the end of the day, your role as a nurse comes down to that, your role as a nurse.
That's great.
I feel like patients, oncology patients, like Mark said, you see them years later throughout their treatment. So you really don't want to ruin that relationship because celebrities, they don't like to be sworn by fans or paparazzi. And you wouldn't want to make them feel the feeling that discomfort that they feel when they're in that situation. And like Mark said, they can be donors. So for City of Hope, of course, you don't want to tarnish that relationship.
That's true. What about you, Leilani? Anything you had to say about that?
Well, I just wanted to say that nursing is a trusted profession. So the profession is built on trust. So, patients do expect and they do have the right to be, treated with dignity and respect. When I was in nursing school, I had a really good clinical instructor who said, ask yourself, if you were the patient, would you want your information out there? Would you want your family members' information out there if they were a patient?
Right.
So when he posed that question, it really just made you think because, as Mark said, they're really sick and at the moment they just want to be, cared for, and they're trusted nurse that comes in or, the manager. And I mean, they're really just trusting you with their care. So that's something that I wanted to add.
That's great. And while we're doing the discussion, if you wouldn't mind going ahead and tweeting, what are some of the social media avenues you utilize for your personal account, for your professional account? If you can just start tweeting some of those things so that we can go ahead and see what those of you that are watching, what are you utilizing when it comes to social media? So we appreciate that. The next area that we're going to talk about is branding yourself through social media and how you do that. And what do you do to make yourself stand out in the crowd when it comes to social media? Do you showcase your qualifications, your work-related certifications? So we're going to talk now to our panelists about how they showcase themselves in social media to make themselves look good and also to brand themselves for the future. So Mark, how do you, when you're using social media, how do you brand yourself? What are you doing?
So there's multiple types of social media that you could utilize, but the first thing is really to pick pick a couple that is the intended purpose. So if you're trying to brand yourself as a nurse and as a professional, one of the ones that I use is LinkedIn, and I maintain that as my professional profile. So making sure that not only is my qualifications, such as where I went to school and different things like that, is part of that, but also adding people that are, within my profession or has some implications of. So I wouldn't add, my friends who have nothing to do with medicine or nursing. I would add, friends of mine that are colleagues of mine that I've become friends with, to ensure that we have that community, but not necessarily someone that, was like childhood friends. So, just because, you're friends with them on Facebook, does not mean that you should be connected with them in LinkedIn. So really thinking about the medium and what exactly are your intended purposes on that. And so, yeah.
When it comes to Facebook, I think Facebook tends to be the one that people utilize more for personal as opposed to professional. And so kind of share some of the guidelines you use. You guys can open up. What are the guidelines that you use for your own personal Facebook page, maybe Instagram, some of those that are a little bit lean less towards the professional realm? And what are the guidelines that you feel that you personally follow as far as you posting personal things, City of Hope things? What are the things that you follow in your own personal life? If you guys want to share with that.
Well, I would never post anything mom and dad wouldn't like to see. So I think that's a good guideline to follow. Yeah.
Just mostly asking.
Yeah, and I don't really do any work affiliations with that stuff, but I also don't post anything that I wouldn't want work to see.
Right. And I think that's a great
Because
guideline.
they're my personal friends on there. They know where I work.
Right.
And I don't want to, give off a bad image of what City of Hope employees do in their spare time.
And what if City of Hope is having an event? For instance, we're having this Twitter chat. Do you feel okay passing that on? Or how do you guys feel about passing on, because I know that marketing will frequently send something like we're having bone marrow transplant reunion, or we're having something that we're having a special speaker. How do you market those types of things in social media for your personal branding?
I think it depends on who's following you. So like Mark said earlier, he would want to kind of isolate his colleagues to his LinkedIn. And maybe if that were the case where he wanted to market the bone marrow transplant reunion, maybe post on LinkedIn. Personally, I wouldn't post on my Instagram or my Facebook, just because only my sister would see it and she's a nurse. And everyone else would kind of just scroll by and say, okay.
Wrong audience.
Yeah, exactly. So really it's your audience. And then even then, going back to what Carson said earlier, one, I wouldn't do it because I don't have nursing colleagues on my social media. And two, I just don't feel comfortable kind of blurring that line of professional life versus personal life. So I just wouldn't post it.
Okay.
So, to kind of go in that end, there's compliance training that everyone kind of goes through when they're a new orientee, or for new grads getting accepted to new hospitals, making sure that the institutions that you're working for kind of delineates what exactly is your professional role and capacity in social media, because it is, we are in a new generation where social media is everywhere. It's part of our life, and we just have, we accept that, but then we realize that our profession, guides us to certain compliance. And one of the things that we have is a guideline for nurses and for anyone that works at City of Hope to follow those guidelines, and making sure that what it is that you're sharing, whether it be Facebook, LinkedIn, follows those things.
All right.
And there's a couple of things from the nursing boards that kind of tells you how to protect yourself and protect your license. So.
It's interesting because hiring the new grads, there's a lot of postings that go on for new grads. And I found it kind of interesting as I read through some of those postings, the emails that I will send regarding the status of their application, they'll copy and paste my responses on Facebook and say, well, I got this from her, and then I got this. What do you think this means? Am I in or am I? And so just being careful, you don't know who's looking at these things. It's so funny to see my exact emails to these, the new grads. It's like, well, she's saying this to me. And so you just don't know who's looking at those boards when you post on boards. It can be a recruiter, it can be, just about anybody. And so just being careful about what you're posting. You just don't know what is going to go out there for things. Anything you wanted to say about that, Leilani?
Well, how you represent yourself on social media is very crucial. People can delete things, but IT can always recover it for some reason. And, I recommend that if you are a current nurse or going to be a new nurse, to make sure that you market yourself. Use social media to market yourself professionally, because you are in a registered nurse role, and that is a professional role. And you can utilize social media to also be an activist. You can also be a teacher or a health expert. I know there's some nurses out there that do blogs. And then there's also humorous social media avenues as well, because I know that, nurses do work hard, and, sometimes a little humor kind of helps. But personal branding is very, very important.
Yeah, one of the brochures we were also reading was talking about, even though you delete something, you don't know who's forwarded it, so it's never truly deleted, and so it can cause problems in that respect. Okay, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about discussion groups and channels and pages for nurses. There's several websites that you can see on our website under Showcase. If you click those on, you'll be able to see what is available for nurses as far as the websites. The section on Google Plus can show all of you how to access it. So if you're on Google Plus right now, you'll be able to see that. And then we wanted to know what you recommend. And so if you can tweet to #NursesForHope, and if you can just tweet what you recommend as far as discussion groups that you utilize, we'd really appreciate that. And we'll also have our panelists answer that question. So when you guys are utilizing discussion groups for nursing, which ones do you guys utilize? Which ones are you on? I know Leilani will probably have, let's let Leilani start first, because there's so many that the two of us are on as far as discussion groups.
Well, for us, we actually use LinkedIn quite a bit. We actually live in LinkedIn 24/7.
Yes, we do.
But we are part of different groups that are associated with the specialties, such as the Oncology Nursing Society, the ASBMT, because we are oncology, BMT, hematology focused. But then there are groups that I will belong to as well, and I know some other nurses will belong to, like their alumni, to kind of see what's going on, and probably the nursing schools as well. And then I also like to be part of the discussion groups of our competitors, because I like to know what other competitors are doing and how we could be competitive in the market. So
that's great. About the three of you, what groups do you belong to in social media? Any nursing groups that you belong to?
One of them I know is All for Nurses, I think. I haven't used it in a while, but I know that when I was in nursing school and studying for NCLEX and things like that, I always came across groups that were working nurses that were discussing certain aspect of their practice and how best to implement things. There's always case studies are important things to utilize. I mean, it's a way for us to learn in a group settings, but then we need to realize if you yourself is trying to educate either your alumni, your colleagues, different things like that, you have to think about what you're posting in terms of what is that case study, because someone could read it and could immediately realize that that's their mother who was sick, who you were taking care of, and it's you never know who's on those forums, and then all of a sudden you just shared personal information about someone. So that's where I think some of my colleagues that were in nursing school with me have realized that that's where the mistakes may happen. Realizing that you're trying to advance the understanding of nurses as a community, but then not correlating the two, that other family members or nurses of that family members could be in that forum as well. So.
Right. And from some of the brochures, you don't even really need to even mention the patient's name.
Yeah.
People will put together who it was that you were talking about, and to be very careful about that too.
Date, time,
things
like that. I mean, it's easy to realize, to think that no one's going to know this patient, but there is those minute details that people can pick up and realize that was that celebrity they were talking about in the news, and you work at that facility.
Right.
Now they put two and two together.
It's very easy to do that. What about the two of you, or anything that you guys participate.
are we talking about here? Like a professional thing, like ONS?
Yes, like
Or-
ONS group, like a group from ONS that is on social media. And then we belong to almost all the oncology ones and the nurses' social media ones that just have certain things that they will do posts about nursing. Again, some of them are humorous type nursing things to kind of help you get through the day, or how there's funny things that patients did. Or
I'm a dud. I don't laugh at anything. I know, like at work, if you were having, you had a difficult situation with a patient or just caring for them, we have support groups that work
Okay.
for that if you need an outlet for that.
excellent.
But yeah, I'm not a member of
Social
anything.
media.
Yeah.
How about you, Jose?
So as I mentioned, I'm a student, so I do my research on some forums, and one that I visit really often is All Nurses.
Okay.
They have a pre-nursing tab on there, and I just kind of look up, I search a certain school that I'm interested in, see what people have to say, and I've noticed some nasty comments on there, and I'm not a recruiter or anything, but I don't know, I wouldn't want to let them into, if I were an admissions counselor, I would
Right.
say I wouldn't want this student.
Yeah.
He's bad-mouthing us on this forum. Or even down on Facebook, I've noticed if I look up a nursing school, sometimes their cohort will come up, a closed group. So I've noticed that's something on, I know it's not professional, but
Right.
it's on Facebook. And what if one of those groups weren't closed and one of those students from that school in that cohort posted something negative?
Oh, yeah.
That could be detrimental to not only them, but the school too.
Mhm.
Just like this brochure mentioned, there was the nursing student who took a picture of, was it the patient?
It was a child. The mom said that was fine for the.
Right, so they had the mom's consent, but even then there was the room number in the background of the photo. So that school lost privileges to do any rotations on that unit.
And then I believe that student was even kicked out of the
Right.
program, could no longer pursue being a nurse because it was very innocent. And she wanted to have, I think she'd seen them in the cafeteria
Right.
and said, "Can I take a picture with your son?" And then she took him back up to the room, and then there's a picture of the room number
Exactly.
on there. And she had posted, I believe, on Facebook, and then some friends saw it, and then they reported it. And so you just never know the ramifications of what you're doing. It's
right, like you said, it was innocent.
very innocent on her
still
part.
had that consequence.
Right, for that school not to be able to, move forward. And I've even heard of an example of when it comes to union negotiations, people posting what their vote was on Facebook, and how the union negotiations had really impacted, because just by the fact of putting your vote on Facebook, huge ramifications for that hospital and somebody doing that. And we just don't think, we think, oh, this is part of my life. Social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, it's part of letting your friends know what you're doing. And I'm sure that was innocent, but I was saying, this is how I voted, no matter what it is that you're doing, being very careful, whether it's political or emotional, or if it's psychosocial. I know that one of these was talking about a hospice nurse that had cared for a patient. She was a friend of hers on Facebook, and the patient had posted about being depressed. And so then the nurse proceeded to say about her new medications and the higher morphine, and just how that was very inappropriate, because then other people saw that and then started asking about her patient that she was friends with. And so I think that aspect is really crucial in not posting anything about a patient or what they're doing. I think the other aspect we want to talk about, and if anyone that is watching can also say, how do you handle it when a patient wants to be a friend of yours, say on Facebook mostly, or some of the more private social medias? How do you handle that? And so if you can just post some of your answers to that question, and we'll kind of have our panelists talk about how do you handle it when in a work situation, when a coworker wants to be your friend on Facebook, or a patient, you have that relationship and they say, oh, they want to friend you on Facebook. How have you guys handled that situation?
Coworkers are, that's, you have to, I think with coworkers, you need to definitely have a connection with them and have that friendship.
Yes.
And, working in nursing, you're going to be friends with a lot of your coworkers. Actually, a lot of my friends are nurses. And that's just the nature of our lives, as we progress and advance ourselves in nursing and you work with all these people, 12-hour shifts, 8-hour shifts, you're eventually gonna want to do activities outside of work together. And you can, that I think is appropriate. But then if it's patients, that's a, definite no in my part. I think, if your patients want to be friends with you, you need to evaluate your role in that situation, evaluate what exactly are you trying to accomplish. Because you will meet patients that are completely your best friend, spitting image, everything. I mean, you could essentially hang out with that patient all the time, but then you're in a profession, you are in a role, you have to step back. And that's where professional nursing is, stepping back and realizing this is my license, this is my work, completely separate things from my life. So I think that's how, if it's, you're meeting those situations, if it's patients asking to be friends or co-workers, realizing what the intents of those connections will be.
Exactly. That's a great answer. Anyone else want to comment on how you handle Facebook requests or handle personal requests?
I know that there's some nurses who are not on social media because they just say, I just don't want to, be part of it.
Right.
And then there's some that are selective of who they add as friends. I met some nurses too who actually don't even put where they work, or also it's just family, and sometimes family is enough on Facebook. Sometimes
That's true.
But then also, to add to the social media too is not to talk about patients like in public areas, like the elevators or in passing in the hallway, cafeteria. I mean, it's to that extent as well. So it's not only just social media.
It's all the way around protecting our patients' privacy.
I think the example you were giving was the nursing student taking a picture. For new grads, nursing students, especially nursing students who come to our facility or other facilities, you do get trained and you do, have to sign those confidentiality clauses and realize that that's not a piece of paper that you're just signing. That is, the purpose of that is to protect the patient, and that's what it really is. And whether or not you feel like you're a nursing student, you're not going to get in trouble for certain things, as that example shows, you are responsible. We're treating you as a professional student nurse, so you're entering a profession that in nursing. So then you're expected to comply with those things. So, for any nursing students out there, I think sharing your experiences and realizing how much you're advancing in nursing is one thing, but then when it becomes to where it's affecting a patient, that's where that line is drawn.
Now you mentioned the forms that City of Hope has us sign as employees. What are some of the highlights that stick in your mind of that form that you guys signed when you came on staff? What are the things that City of Hope, I know that in the brochure we're talking about, make sure you're going by the guidelines for your particular hospital or your particular organization. And what are the policies regarding social media? Each hospital or each organization may have a little bit of a different policy, but let's kind of highlight what are some of the things that stand out to you that City of Hope brings out in our personal policy about social media.
So, it's the guidelines, and I'll just read verbatim from this, is be aware of your association with City of Hope at all times. And that's bolded, and that's a key aspect of it all, is that I post my where I work because I'm proud of where I work. So, I am linked with Facebook to my personal Facebook to City of Hope's Facebook. But then, there's different activities that I post on my timeline. I realized that, if I am posting something there about how stressed out I am at work, that is something that could impact City of Hope as a perception. If you're always posting that you're stressed out at work, then patients could read that and realize, oh, that nurses there are overworked, and that's why they're acting this way, or that's why they're like this. So they're going to correlate the two. And at City of Hope, our patients are active in Facebook. They like our pictures all the time. So I realized that they're very active in our Facebook wall. So that I think that guideline is encompassing of a lot of things. Is that just realizing what you are associated with, what you are posting is going to have impacts down the line. So thinking about those things first before you post it.
Great. Anyone, did you have
As
some
far
highlights?
as our guidelines, I'm reading it here. It says be honest and transparent. If you make a mistake, correct it quickly, honestly, and openly. And I feel if you're on social media as a nurse, then you're taking that risk of sharing with the world something that you might not want shared. I mean,
Right.
nowadays social media gives you the option to tag your friend. So say the three of us go out and I want to tell the world, and I tag both of them, but they didn't want to share that we went out to a certain event. That's still putting them at risk. So personally, I run the LNEC account. Again, it's the End of Life Nursing Education Consortium on Facebook. And if I made a mistake, if I posted something that I wasn't supposed to, then I like that City of Hope acknowledges that it's possible to make a mistake. No one's perfect. So why not let your employees know that it's okay to, well, it's not okay to make a mistake, but if you do, be honest about it and correct it.
Yeah, we've had to be really careful because we have a lot of fun things that we do with our nurses. We have, for instance, Ugly Sweater Day or Pink Day or Aloha Day or Florence Nightingale's birthday. A lot of fun things we're doing, but as we've gone around to the units to take pictures, we've had to be very careful that the patient board was not, and it's really hard to do because you're trying to get people at the nurses station and you've got this great photo of everyone, but all the patients' names are on there. And I think a lot of times that nurses don't realize if they're taking a selfie and it's got the patient board in the background, or you're taking a selfie with you and a friend at work, just be careful about anything that could have a patient's name, because that's what we're here for, is the patients. And when we're taking pictures at work, we really run a high risk of something, they're walking the floors and they're in the background and somebody sees that on Facebook, says, oh, that's, Kevin Costner was there or whoever it is. So just being careful with that.
That reminds me, during my employee orientation, they did touch on social media, and it was an example of what happened at another hospital where an employee who worked in admitting posted a picture of the pile of work that they had to do. But that pile of work had patient names and medical numbers and just date of births, just information that really shouldn't have been shared. So like what everyone here has been saying, just be cautious of what's posted.
Great. Well, there's a question that just came in for you, Jose.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. LNAC project they have a strong presence on Facebook.
Right.
Tell us more about the objectives and successes of using Facebook for LNAC.
Right. So perfect person to answer that question. So during every meeting, our project manager, Rose Rani, always updates us as to how many likes we get. And every week we get more and more. So yes, I would say we've been very successful. And I feel a part of that success has been just the content that we share.
Right.
So we're connected to several journals and we share a lot of relevant articles on our Facebook. So in that sense, social media is a good thing because you're disseminating education that all these nurses like. And just out of curiosity, I've clicked around on who's following us, and yeah, they're all hospice or palliative care nurses.
Yeah.
So thank you for everyone that likes us. So yeah, go on Facebook and like
Go on
LNAC.
and like Jose right now.
Thank you for asking that.
Okay. Anything else you guys wanted to talk about related to discussion groups? Because the next one we're going to go into, and we have a question about that too, is going to be how recruiters utilize social media. So any other questions or any other thing you guys have? Okay, we'll go on to the next part, is how do recruiters utilize social media to hire nurses? And we had Kathy who asked us, as a recruiter, do you check candidates' social media accounts before we contact them? And I'd have to say for myself, no. I never look at people's social media accounts. I don't look at Facebook. I don't look at any of that prior to making any contact, nor do I afterwards, to tell you the truth. I do know other recruiters that do, but I feel that the application and the resume give me the information I need for what I need to work through. How about you, Leilani?
Once in a while I will. It just depends because I've worked at other organizations and sometimes a name will ring a bell. And so when I look at a resume and a online application, for some reason, I just get kind of that. Recruiters have like this weird feeling. And so sometimes we kind of just do more investigation and just kind of, take a look. But I do know there are a lot of recruiters out there, that healthcare recruiters that do go and that Google people and look on LinkedIn and looked on Facebook. So I guess it just depends on the recruiter.
Right. I think that that's the key, is making sure. And for me, I think my concern would be, do I have the right person? Because there's a lot of people with the same name, and I wouldn't want to make a decision based on somebody had the same name, but maybe had all sorts of pictures that weren't appropriate on Facebook. So at this point, I choose not to, but I do know people that do. What we'd also like for all of our viewers to do, if you could please go ahead and tweet, what are the social media avenues you use when you're looking for a job? What are some of the, Facebook, LinkedIn, just anything and everything that you utilize when you're trying to find a job? If you could go ahead and tweet that to us, we'd really appreciate it. Okay, the next one was on online platforms and social media. The other thing we'd like to ask our viewers is, what are some of the online platforms and social medias that have been successful to you in getting a job? And so I'll go ahead and have you start tweeting those. That'd be great. What about you guys? What do you hear out there as far as social media in getting jobs or looking for candidates? I know, Carson, you're an assistant clinical nurse manager. Do you ever consider looking on Facebook for somebody's, like,
Oh, I never have. Never even crossed my mind, but now it will.
Good point.
No, I never even thought to do that, actually.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to know.
Yeah.
I mean, I
It's
don't know.
personal.
They may not be careful about what they post, but they could be an awesome employee,
Yeah.
and a great nurse. So no.
I think that's a purpose of maybe having these types of tweet chats, is just to open up the thought process for people that what I post on social media has an impact on my profession, and maybe be more careful about that and getting a job. What about you, Mark?
Like I said, all of my friends are pretty much nurses. So, I always get requests as to, oh, who's your recruiter? How do I get into City of Hope? Different things like that. It's on Facebook. I tend to not respond to those things because I know them personally. So then there's always my biased thoughts or, my favoritism and different things like that. But it's kind of hard to, attach the personal life of someone to their professional life because I don't know them professionally. So if it's on LinkedIn, I definitely throw it to Leilani on LinkedIn because I'm friends with her. But I actually, Leilani, I met you through your cousin. So, and I was a new grad and I posted up, I'm just got done with boards. I'm looking for a job. Her cousin contacted me, and then that's how I kind of got connected that way. So there is always the advantages of utilizing social media, but thank God at the time I was careful of everything that I posted because
Leilani's watching you.
Exactly. So you never we come back to that concept that you never know who's on your social media feeds, and just thinking about what you're sharing to the world, does have an impact on your professional life too, whether it be your personal account. So just, kind of going back to the guidelines at City of Hope, thinking about your association with City of Hope at all times.
Right.
So.
Very true. How about the rest of you guys? Anything about social media and looking for a job? What's been successful? What do your friends say about what avenues do they utilize when looking for a job, and what boards do they post on?
As far as social media goes, I would just say LinkedIn. You even have the convenience of getting emails. I've liked a few, or whatever the equivalent of liking is on LinkedIn.
Okay.
And whatever hospitals I've liked, they'll send looking for a clinical nurse or clinical nurse specialist.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say once that time does come for me to start seeking out nursing positions, I would utilize LinkedIn.
Okay.
But like I said, my audience on Facebook and Instagram, they're not really nursing focused. So I don't see anyone sharing anything that might benefit me professionally.
Okay, that's great. Anyone else? Leilani, do you have any comments about?
Well, I would say that if it wasn't for LinkedIn, I wouldn't be here at City of Hope. And I was new to LinkedIn at that time. So, it does work, but again, you have to think that, being on those social media avenues, that especially LinkedIn, it's a professional website
Yes,
for
it is.
professionals.
Yeah.
And, but you can just, try to, get information on how to use it, but you have to make sure that you use it wisely, of course, because there are recruiters on the other side, like me and Lavelle and the rest of our talent acquisition team that live in LinkedIn daily, because we're trying to source, the niche oncology, bone marrow transplant, hematology nurses, and they're hard to come by, but I credit LinkedIn for me being here.
Very true. I know that we're talking about when people do post on blogs and what they say and what the impact that can have on the organization. You see a lot of people, sometimes they'll be bashing their work. We'll talk next month about nurse recognition, but I did notice last year, because I'm on several nursing discussion groups, and people start saying about what their hospital didn't do for Nurses Week. They used to do this and now they don't, and just the impact that had on other people started responding. Yeah, my hospital didn't do anything for Nurses Week. And of course I posted City of Hope did all these great things for nurses on Nurses Week. And but yeah, just kind of interesting that when people do get on blogs, they get on discussion groups, that has an impact too on the organization, because I started reading and they were saying that the hospital that they worked at and that, they didn't recognize them for Nurses Week. And again, we'll be talking about that next week, because I think City of Hope does an amazing job. Next month, we'll actually talk about it in our discussion group. But just even those small things, it can be positive or negative how we post on discussion groups. Anything else that you guys wanted to, I'll see if we have any questions.
I just wanted to add that just remember that the federal law reinforces and further defines privacy through the HIPPA, which is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. So this regulation is intended to protect the patient privacy and confidentiality. So always just keep that in your mind when you're using social media at all times.
Absolutely.
It's like what Carson said earlier. It's not only legal, but it's an ethical. And I forget who, I think it was Leilani, mentioned that nursing is trust-based. And it's even in this brochure that it's, if you break that trust, then that patient won't feel comfortable sharing anything with you because you broke the trust.
That's so true.
It shouldn't only be HIPAA that prevents you from sharing, because, that will get you in trouble legally, but just ethically, you should remind yourself that you're privileged to care for this person. So why take advantage of that privilege?
That's great. I know frequently we have referred to a brochure, and the name of the brochure is A Nurse's Guide to the Use of Social Media. It's put out by the National Council of State Boards of Nursing. So if you can pick that up, we would highly recommend it. It just gives some excellent examples of someone even showing a picture to a former coworker about a current patient, and that was a HIPAA violation also. And just examples that they give you that you wouldn't think necessarily would be a HIPAA violation, but that they definitely are, so that we can protect ourselves through that social media. And then next month, we will be doing the tweet chat. Again, it will be on the 4th Tuesday of May, and I believe that's going to be the 26th of May. That we'll be doing that 3 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. And the topic will be nursing appreciation. How do you feel appreciated as a nurse? With Nurses Week coming up in May, and just talking about how we here at City of Hope recognize our nurses and the things that we're doing for Nurses Week, and some of the fun things that we've had planned and what we've done in the past. And so just be prepared to share what your hospital did or what makes you feel appreciated as a nurse, whether it's that smile from your patient, it's that thank you note. How do you handle that? And as far as even gifts with your patients and how you feel appreciated. So that pretty much wraps up what we wanted to discuss today. It doesn't seem like we have any other further questions to be asked. I wanted to thank our panelists for joining us, and Leilani, thank you. And we will see you next month. Thank you.